Ho, 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 and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism, a podcast about urbanism and stuff. I am your host, Alex Williams, and I'm joined here today by the illustrious Nic Laporte. Welcome, Nic.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
You know,
It's
it
wonderful to
was
be here.
it was only by my exclusive announcement and invitation that you were allowed to join this podcast that you started. It is your show.
We started it. Come on.
Yeah, but I mean, you're like, hey, I want to start this podcast, and you invited me to join you, and I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm also delighted that actually Austin Surson is in the live chat with us today. This is great, especially because we are recording on Thursday. Usually we record on Wednesdays, but yesterday was Christmas Day, and that would be like a weird thing to be like, everybody, take time away from your family. So instead, we're recording on Boxing Day, December 26th. We're probably just going to release this right away on YouTube once we're done recording. It's also probably going to be kind of a short show. We're just hanging out. We're just chilling.
So a couple things there.
Yeah.
It's Boxing Day, which we just looked it up, and I didn't actually know this. Alex, you said you thought Boxing Day was a day for boxing, like the sport.
This is what I thought when I was a child, which I apologize for the yellow lighting of myself today. I took down my white lights that I usually use. As a child, I thought that Boxing Day was like the big, like the Super Bowl of boxing. And it was just such a big thing in Canada. And my family was just weirdly not into it. And so instead of watching boxing on Boxing Day, we would go shopping on Boxing Day. No, it turns out that it has nothing to do with the sport of boxing. Do you want to explain what it actually is?
This is actually from a website known as Wikipedia. I don't know if you've heard of it, but yeah, they've got some information here. But it says Boxing Day was once a day to donate gifts to those in need. And this is in the Commonwealth nations. And obviously we know what it is now. It's where people go and buy the things that they didn't get for Christmas or returning the things that they didn't want for Christmas. Yeah. It's changed a little bit.
So, well, I mean, this is, being on Boxing Day. We don't want this show, so we're gifting it to all of you.
There we go.
To listen to it. Is that appropriate? Is that,
That's fair.
Yeah, fair. Totally fair.
So another thing about inviting people. Okay. Last week, this is okay. I've only ever announced that the next week's guest would be 3 times in the history of this show. We've had many guests. Only 3 times did I mention in advance that who's next week's guest would be. And all 3 times that person has had to reschedule. So I'm going to stop doing that from now on. So yeah, Brandon, the American Featser, will be on a future date, likely at the end of January. Not saying any hard dates, but yeah.
And we also have other people we want to join us in January, and we're never announcing. We're
never announcing. We got some great names. I want to mention them, but I'm not going to because
never announcing
them canceling.
Yeah, they actually they like watched the previous show and they're like, they announced me. I need to like bring this show down a peg.
Yeah,
because we can't let them feel too good about themselves. Shout out to Jen, who's in the live chat as well. If you want to join the live chat, you can go to patreon.com/radiofreeurbanism, and you'll get to watch the show live as we're doing it, and share comments and kind of join in on the fun here. Nic, you're going to start us off. You have a little update-y.
Yeah, CES is coming. It's just around the corner. It's always at the start of the year in Las Vegas. CES is the Consumer Electronics Show where, I mean, it's massive. It's insanely huge. I used to follow it when I was really into like computer gaming and hardware and stuff and technology. I still am. I like to see what kind of new stuff is coming down the pipe. But there's a lot of micromobility stuff that's going to be there. It was there last year. Ride Review, which used to be Micromobility Industries, I think, on YouTube, covered a lot of it last year. And I might be going. We'll see. You'll know very quickly if I am going because I'll be posting stuff about it. But look forward to that. If you're into the rides, the actual micromobility devices, keep your eye around. Like check out Ride Review, or if I'm there, you'll see my stuff as well at Nic the Door. But yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of it. I've never been like a super techie kind of guy, but I know all of this stuff kind of ends up circulating, especially the micromobility stuff, I guess, is something that I'm more interested in. So if you make a video about it, I'll certainly be watching that. Jen says in the chat, I also hate CES because it empties my wallet. Yeah, I know Jen's big on micromobility too. And there's always lots of cool toys that I see coming out of that.
Oh man, like drones and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Stuff like
yeah,
so many
that's
cool
true.
things.
It's not even just micromobility, but drones are super cool.
VR tech. The latest and greatest in VR. That's the stuff I like to see as well.
VR is a
Oh yeah.
lot of fun. If I was rich and had
Just put this
just a
on
full
right now.
spare room,
Just wear this.
I'd have a VR thing.
I'll do the show from VR. Oh whoa, this is wild. The pass through actually works. I can see everything.
That'd be crazy. That's what kind of VR headset is that?
Oh, it's the whatever the brand is. Used to be Oculus, now owned by Facebook /
Oh,
Meta,
yeah.
whatever it's called
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Nice. Very cool. Very cool stuff. Yeah, I hope you do some of that. I want to see what comes out of it because I think a lot of those things are pretty game changing to our cities, to how we get around our cities.
oh, it's amazing. Yeah,
yeah.
electric micromobility. Not the suitcase one. I think we talked about it when it actually happened.
Oh, yeah,
last
yeah,
year.
yeah,
There was
yeah.
like the suitcase scooter that you could
Yeah.
scoot around the airport with. Maybe not a game changer, but still pretty neat. I think
Yeah.
what I'm really interested is to see the more affordable electric micromobility devices that come around. Whatever it is, if it's an e-scooter, electric bike, one wheels, or even something new that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Do you know what? I will say, Kate, those one wheel ones where like it's just one wheel and you stand off to the side and the guy's
Electric
always
unicycle?
wearing like, yeah, and they're wearing
Yeah.
like the big helmet and stuff. Like it's like a
Yeah.
serious, those things fly.
Yeah,
Like fly down the road. Those are
they're too
crazy.
fast.
Yeah,
They're
have
too
you
fast.
ridden one of those?
No, I will be in the future. I have some plans with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I've ridden one once, and some guy basically just held on to me as I tried to wobble forward. I think it takes some time to really get it under your legs.
Yeah, yeah. It's not not for me. I would say it seems a little bit intimidating. I enjoy e-scooters, but I'm definitely mostly just an e-bike guy. Like I
Yeah.
think that's the most accessible, best form of micromobility out there, in my opinion. That's just one man's opinion, but the cost is a big thing. But you can get like decently priced micromobility things, but you can
E-scooters
also
are so cheap.
yeah, e-scooters you can get super cheap. Like my e-scooter, I think was less than $400, and it
Yeah.
works fine. Like it's fine for really quick trips. Like if I just have to pick up a jug of milk or something for breakfast or whatever, right? Like it's perfect for that sort of thing. Longer distances, I think e-bikes are always a big
Much more comfortable, yeah.
and
for-
more
for long
comfortable,
rides.
right? Like they're a little bit more stable. An e-scooter, you go over a bump or anything, and you're done.
I have almost died so many times. I've never fallen off my e-scooter, but so close many times from hitting
Yeah.
a bump.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. I think this show is going to be a little bit more casual. We do have some listener mail that we'll get into later on. But we're just going to kind of chat and hang, especially because we're missing Ethan today, who we miss dearly. But of course, he's doing family Christmas stuff. And we hope everybody's enjoyed their own holidays, whatever holiday you're celebrating right now. I know Christmas and Hanukkah like lined up perfectly this year. Yeah. So something I wanted to talk about this week is something I saw Brent Toderian say on LinkedIn. Now, for people who don't know, Brent is he's a consulting city planner and urbanist. He works at Toderian Urban Works. That's his own firm. Obviously, it's got his name in it. And he's worked both for the city of Calgary and for the city of Vancouver, and he's had some other jobs as well. But something he said that I kind of like, that I kind of loved, was, "I'm not optimistic, I'm determined." And I thought that was like a great kind of encapsulation of how I feel about like the efforts that I put into things. In housing advocacy and transportation advocacy, where we're talking about like transit and cycling and just mobility options, walkability, local businesses, like being able to support these sorts of things. a lot of people that I talk to are kind of in their 20s, and there is a little bit of a doomerism mentality, which I'm not in love with. I'm not a doomerist. I'm broadly an optimistic person. But the reason that I'm optimistic is because I have decided to play a role with agency, right? I vote in every election. I show up to city council meetings. I think about these things. I talk about these things. I'm participating actively. And so when Brent says, I'm not optimistic, I'm determined, it's kind of this establishment of agency, right? I'm not just thinking like, oh, the future is bright, things will be good, things will be fine. I'm thinking things will be good because I'm going to make them that way, because I'm going to participate in my community. And, in my particular case, I'm running for city council in 2025. That's a big way that I'm trying to take that agency. I've talked about saying we are doing this instead of they are doing this. I'm part of the conversation, right? When I talk about building high-speed rail between Calgary and Edmonton, I've stopped saying, oh, they've been talking about this for decades. And I say, we've been talking about this for decades. I insert myself into the conversation instead of giving up that power. And I think we have a tendency to do that. I chat with my friends in their 20s and they say, I'm not going to see that in my lifetime. And I think, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to see that in your lifetime? Like you maybe have like 60 plus years left to live, and a lot can happen in that time. I like to imagine myself living to at least 100 and hopefully beyond. And so I think of this 75-year time scale. 75 years ago was 1950. And now, like, I'm thinking 75 years from now is 2100. Who knows what events are going to happen between then and now, or what social perspectives are going to change between then and now, and what things we might accomplish, right? You think the year 2000, I bet nobody thought that e-bikes would be as big as they are, right? Like that's kind of like a newer thing, a technological thing that has made this one way of getting around our city just that much more accessible, with or without the prerequisite infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's something I think about a lot, is trying to broaden our perspectives and really add ourselves into the conversation and try and make a difference in our cities, in our communities, in our province, in our country, because we are part of the conversation. Don't let things happen to you. Let yourself be part of the conversation. That's kind of my rant. I want to hear what you think about that, Nick.
No, I absolutely love that. And to think about the future, and back in the 20th century, we all thought, oh yeah, flying cars are going to be the future. But we're seeing, at least in our world, that we might want to build is that not necessarily. I mean, sure, maybe that could be a possibility, but really, we're just moving back the clock to a better way that we figured out a long time ago, and realized that our cities were built in a way because that was a good way to build them. But I'm not optimistic. I'm determined. What Brent Tadarian said, I love that. And as I mentioned to you before the show, I just watched It's a Wonderful Life, which is a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, it was in the 40s. It's a holiday movie. I don't know where you live if you haven't seen this movie yet, but it's one we watch every year. I love it. Brings a tear to my eye every time I watch it, because I'm just like, God, he's just a good man. Anyway, it's a story of a man, getting his plans, his optimistic future, ruined by personal responsibility to his community. And that's his whole life, is being derailed from the path he wants to take into the path that he ends up taking because of the obligations he feels he has to his community and his family and his friends. And then he goes to kill himself, but an angel comes to save him and shows him what the world would be like if he was never born, and to realize how much that positive impact he's had on his community. And I just thought it's just such a fantastic story. And I think this year more than ever that I've watched it really hit hard for me, and to realize that determination you have to keep to move forward, because you do make a difference, as little as it might be. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Bailey from the movie or anything, but like, we make a difference in our community, and we need to work towards making our community better. And I love the fact that you said that we have to put ourselves in the community and say, we're talking about it, we're doing it, right? Even if you're working with people on it, it doesn't go your way, you're still part of it. you're trying to move the needle in a direction to make a city better. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like, on top of it, I was raised with this like Alberta can-do attitude, right? Like that's like a really important part of the Albertan identity is that like we can do things, and like we do things, like I do things, as part of the attitude. My grandparents grew up on a farm, and that was like an important part of their identity was like this hard work. My great grandparents farmed into their 80s, right? Like this like can do attitude of like hard work and perseverance, the entrepreneurialism, all of that. I think we need to like let ourselves bake that attitude into our community culture, right? When I was out for a walk today, I went down some streets that I don't normally go down. Like I kind of did a different route and did some exploring. And I noticed, how many little libraries are in my neighborhood. And it's like little things like that. Little things of people choosing every day, I'm going to make my neighborhood a better place. I'm going to do something small to make my community a better place. And when we do things like that, like you walk past a little library and I don't know the people who live in those homes, but I just think they're probably nice. They're probably like delightful human beings, right? And one of the houses, they also had like a front porch with benches, right? Like those are people who want to be part of the community and want to participate. And I thought that was great. And so, Nick, this leads me to a question I have. 2025. I don't know if you're a New Year's resolution kind of guy or not. But 2025, like, I don't know, what's your plan? Like, what do you want to do better? How do you think we as like an urbanist community, as an online urbanist community, as people who care about the cities, who operate in these activism spheres, trying to make our communities better places. What do you hope for? What do you want to see, or how do you want to participate?
This is something I've actually been thinking about a lot lately, and I think I keep coming back to the same thing. I study language, mainly Japanese, and I've been studying it for a long time. And something I realized a long time ago was that something like that is like a glacier moving mountains. That's what it is. It takes so long to get there. And as you go, you barely notice the changes because it's so slow. But you just keep working at it because you know that in the end, you can get somewhere. You know there's going to be a change. You're going to see it eventually and go, wow, that's incredible. And I think that's what I want to keep doing is just keep working on it every day. Whatever it is that I'm doing, just keep working on it slowly and knowing that this is a generational fight. This is a life fight. This is something I want to spend my life working towards, being part of my community, trying to work on the things locally and not even locally, everywhere, just trying to spread the word through, mediums like YouTube and stuff, trying to be a better me. That's what I try to do every year. But I don't like having like a specific goal. It could have like a loose one, but they're kind of salient, like get to X amount of subscribers or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I like what you're saying. I know, a lot of the time we talk about SMART goals, right? Specific being the S in the SMART goal. But I listened to a podcast. I don't know if it's out yet or not. It's one that I was editing for work, and the guest, he was talking about having goals that are a little bit more process oriented rather than having it being like a specific thing. Because once you reach that specific thing, you're like, well, I mean, I did it. And then it's just like over. The high is like for a moment and then it's gone, right? And you move on or whatever. And yeah, so you talked about how, being oriented toward what you're doing to get there.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this with my own race for city council. And I'm like, well, obviously, like, my goal is to win the election, right? Like, October 20th, 2025, I want the votes to be counted, and I want them to say Alex Williams is the new city councilor for Ward 11, Calgary City Council. That's the goal, right? But I was thinking, what is like the overarching goal? Because obviously, like, October 20th isn't going to happen, and then whether I win or lose, like, that's the end of the story, right? Like, if I win, it's like, well, I won, I did the goal, and then it's just like over, and then what do I do? Well, now I'm a city councilor and I have all of these other things to do, right? Or if I lose, then I'm not a city councilor and I have these other things to do, right? Like, I'm like, what is my goal? What is the kind of purpose, right? The kind of little p purpose is what he said, the thing that's kind of ongoing. And I think it's just making the city a better place, right? Like, whether I win or lose the election, it's about making the city a better place. And getting elected and being a city councilor is one of the ways that I see that I have an opportunity to make my city a better place for everybody that lives here, right? And win or lose, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to make my city a better place. And so that's kind of my big thing is like wake up every day and think, what can I do to make this better for people? How can I improve this? How can I do my part to making this just like a pleasant place to live? Making it so that people can enjoy their day, so that people can get to and from work safely, get to and from school safely, so that people have a roof over their heads, right? I think it's 20% of Calgarians, 1 in 5 Calgarians cannot afford the housing that they currently have. That's crazy. That is not that is not that is not a good place to live. If you can't afford the housing that you're in, and lots of these people who are in those situations, they might like it's not like they're living way beyond their means. They're trying to take care of themselves, right? And so that's the overarching goal is how can I today make this a better place to live? And so I'm always delighted when I see people putting that effort in, and I hope as we go into 2025, I hope we see more of the internet urbanists doing that. And I know a lot of internet urbanists are involved in their their local strong towns group, their EMB group, their whatever other housing groups there are. They're involved with critical mass, whatever. But I hope they show that more. I hope they show that process a little bit more. I think it would be great. But yeah, that's my
great
thought.
Yeah, it's something I need to remember. Something I don't talk a lot about in my videos at all, usually, occasionally. But yeah, that's awesome. No, it's a good goal to work towards, right?
Yeah.
It's the process. And that's something that I've been trying to do too, is just, when I'm working on something, it's not about the finish line, because, we've talked about this in the past, but like when you finish making YouTube video, it is very gratifying. You get to put all the files away on your, external hard drive or something and move your documents into the finished folder. But then you're like, I got to work on the next thing, which is fun too. But I've been finding like making smaller goals every day. Like, hey, just, sit down for, 2 hours. And then you've done, like, that was great. And you feel good about it and you can relax in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it makes the whole process more enjoyable.
Do it piece by piece, right? Like make the goal have something to do with the process rather than like, well, I need to accomplish this grand vision that I have. I need to, be the prime minister or whatever. It's like, well, okay, that's a pretty tough job to get, but what are you doing to do the things that you think that you could do in that job, right? That's my perspective. But let's get on to your rant. I ranted a little bit. Let's hear what you've got to say.
No, this is something I've ranted about many times before, and I will again. But it's to talk about Car Brain a little bit. So I released another short that I meant to make for a long time, but I finally was like ahead of time. I was like, hey, I can pump this out in an hour and just get her done. So I put out a short on Instagram, and it's about idling. It's basically just, a Christmas song. It's the most wonderful time of the year. And it's just cars idling and people on their phones in their cars that are idling. And then the music kind of gets somber and the reverb gets really heavy and wet. And then the sound of the idling engine comes in, slowly rises until it gets really loud. And it ends on a sign here in Vancouver that BC is idle free. You're wasting your money. We have these signs all over the place. Don't idle because it's illegal. Not because it's illegal, because it's a stupid waste of money. You're wasting your own time and money, but it's bad for everybody who have to breathe that air. And predictably, the responses that I got were incredibly mixed, but mostly just like against it, because that's the last time I had an idling video. It was like just bombarded with car brainness, filled with whataboutism. People saying, what about cruise ships and airplanes and stuff like that? I'm like, I'm not talking about pollution, guys. We're talking about polluting your local community and yourself. But the thing that I really find interesting is just how people respond to it. There was that study, the car brain study, motonormativity study by Ian Walker, where they had all of these questions, but they just changed them slightly. So one of them that I want to highlight was the people shouldn't smoke in highly populated areas where other people have to breathe in the cigarette fumes versus people shouldn't drive in highly populated areas where other people have to breathe in the car fumes. And 75% of people agreed with the first statement about smoking, and only 17% agreed with the second one about car fumes. And I thought that was it's so fascinating to me. But beyond that is the response from people to not only disregard the negative effects of leaving your car idling and just car fumes in general, but for people to double down. And the amount of people I see in response to this, and not just to my post, but other posts around idling, they'll say, I'm going to idle more now, or I leave my truck idling all night if I want to, just to spite you. And it brings me back to this saying that I heard a while ago, and I fucking love it. But basically, I changed it a little bit. But car brain people will eat shit just on the off chance that somebody they don't like will have to smell their breath. And that's exactly what this is. They'll spend more of their own money burning fuel in their car, and the most likely person to breathe in those toxic fumes is themselves, just to spite the people they don't like who are trying to make their communities better. And it's just like, wow. Anyway, what do you think about this, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, internet comments.
Yes.
I always tell people, the internet is not a real place. It's a tool, and I think it's an important tool for having conversations. I think probably a lot of the people who leave those comments are, they're probably having a laugh, right? I don't I don't want to hate on them too much, because I have friends who say things like that to me, right? One of my friends, whenever he talks to me about bike lanes, he calls it the rolling coal lane. He's like, I love bike lanes because it puts all the cyclists in one spot where I can just easily roll coal on them, right? He's like, I know there's going to be people there who I can roll coal on. And so I know some people think that it's funny. Tone doesn't come across well on the internet. And I always try and engage in good faith. And I'll give you an example here. And this is a long preamble to other things that I'll say. Today I was scrolling through a feed and there was somebody, scraping up some ice off of the sidewalk, right? It was this video, somebody scraping up some ice, and somebody comments and they say, wouldn't it be better to just leave the ice and let it melt naturally instead of breaking it up like that? Isn't it more dangerous when it's all chipped apart and stuff? Which, you might think well, is this person an idiot, right? The danger of ice is that you're going to slip on it. You don't want to just leave it on the sidewalk. And somebody responded that way to this person. And then the person responds back, oh, I'm Australian. I have never seen snow in my life. I have never had this experience. So I'm genuinely asking, is this better or is this worse, right? Because from their perspective, they're like, well, but if you chip it up, then you're going to have these ice shards everywhere, right? This is kind of their perspective, right? Yeah. And so I think, about engaging in good faith with people, because some people, as much as they might sound like complete idiots, they might really be coming from a position of well, like back up, back up, back up. They might just not understand. And so I always try and engage in good faith with people, even on the internet where it's not a real place and people say all sorts of wacky nonsense. I try and be real with people. That said, I think this is really actually like disturbing. That 75% of people agree that you don't want people smoking, you don't want secondhand smoke, but only 17% of people agree that you shouldn't drive in populated areas for fear of other people breathing in the car fumes. Now, when you're driving your car, you are protected against a lot of the negative externalities because you have an air filter, you have soundproofing, you have ways that make this a safe experience. You're kind of in this metal cage, so if you get hit, you're probably going to be fine, right? Depending, speed and mass, what hits you, what's the condition of your car, do the airbags work, whatever. But as a pedestrian, if you're just walking out, you're just breathing in those fumes directly. If you get hit, you're dead. You're done. And you're also affected by the engine noise and the road noise a lot more than the people actually in the vehicle. And so I think it's an interesting conversation. And you'll remember, well, I mean, you may not remember, but you might know that in Canada, in the US, especially like Anglo Canada and the US, there was like huge campaigns against smoking in the 90s and early aughts, right? Like people were worried that if we got rid of the smoking section in restaurants, that they would lose business because, well, now people can't smoke here, right? But of course, they did not lose business. It actually got better because suddenly people like my family, where, nobody smokes in my immediate family, we were like, oh, great. Like we can just go to the restaurant and just like enjoy a smoke-free experience. That's delightful, So we actually went out to eat more after that change happened. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting, like the way that we talk about it. And also, where Europeans have a lot more walkable streets, they also smoke a lot and they smoke everywhere. I was just in Austria and Germany, and it was like, it was constant, and it was everywhere, and it was everyone. When I was in the Netherlands, which urbanists hold up as like this perfect saintly god, there was like 12-year-olds smoking cigarettes on the street, right? Like, and so I we have these different perspectives. It's like a cultural perspective of like, this negative externality is evil, but this one is fine, even though they may have similar effects, or one might even be worse, right? And so I think when we have conversations like this, it's important to maybe boil it down with people to being like, hey, you want clear air to breathe. These are the things, right? And we need to have a real conversation about where we're willing to part and where we're willing to say, like, you know what, that negativity is worth it. I'll take that. Right? Does that make sense? Like, I feel like I totally just went on a long thing.
No. I get what you're saying. And but still, back to the whole thing about, yeah, it is just the internet. It's just full of people throwing crap at each other for fun. A lot of the time. I could leave it there if it weren't for the fact that people do spend a lot of their money sometimes to make their vehicles less fuel efficient and to literally roll coal, for example, which is an actual thing people do for fun because I don't know. Assaulting people is fun in different ways, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently. That's what I hear.
Yeah. But yeah, the car brain is very interesting. I'm interested to see how the Overton window shifts over time. And I definitely think this is going to be one of the things that we look back on in, hopefully less than 30 years maybe and go, yeah, what the fuck were we doing, humanity? Like just like farting cars down the street, leaving them running all the time, poisoning the air. Yeah, I mean, we're already there, but I think society at large is nowhere close to that. Obviously, seeing results like the 17% of people agree that it should be considered a bad thing to pollute your environment in a highly populated city. So
yeah, and you know what? Like, I'll say too, like, most people aren't thinking about that, right? Like the last municipal election, we had 47% voter turnout. Most people are thinking about, do I have a roof over my head? Can I get to my places that I need to? And is my family fed? People are not as concerned as we might think, or as some of us might want to think, right?
No, Alex,
we got to be
the poorest
real.
people are looking up to the billionaires and saying, hey, you guys are doing great. I have something to aspire to. That's what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
That's what Kevin O'Leary said.
That's what Kevin O'Leary said. Yeah, we're concerned with our immediate concerns, obviously.
Yeah, and we have pet issues too.
Yeah, and so and everybody is, as much as we're sitting here being like, oh, it would be great if we had this and that we did this and we'd had less car pollution or whatever. 5 seconds from now, you and I both are going to be like, what am I having for dinner? Right? Like we're thinking about the things in front of us. Mm-hmm. And everybody's thinking about the things in front of us.
Yep.
And so if the smell of exhaust is not in front of you, like I was thinking about it when I was on my walk today, right? When I'm out on my walk and I'm walking alongside the road, and the route that I took, there was no median. Like I was right beside the cars. It's Boxing Day, so there was a lineup of cars, and there's just a ton of exhaust going straight up my nose. Yeah, I'm thinking about it then. But you know what? Tomorrow I probably won't think about it at all, because I won't go on the same walk in the same area. I'll be on a walk in a quieter space through a park, and I'm not going to be thinking about that. And so I also think, like, when we talk about these things, we got to be realistic about it. And we got to realize too, the solution isn't to whine to people about their smelly car exhaust. The solution is to be like, hey, let's make ways for your kids to walk to school, so that you don't have to pick them up at all. They gain some independence, right? Like, the solution to car exhaust is not to whine about the car exhaust. The solution to car exhaust is just to give people a good reason to just do something else.
But it is part of one giant mosaic, though, I think. When you're trying to be thought-provoking about these things, right? Is to at least have it in people's brains, so when you present other ideas that could happen. Like, you can actually build things to be different. Like, for example, letting your kids walk to school safely. It can be brought forward as some kind of benefit, at least, right?
100%. 100% it's a benefit. But I just,
it's not motivating people to change.
It's not motivating people to change, right?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's picking their kid up to school, they're not sitting there in their car keeping it warm thinking, boy, this sure sucks for the person standing outside my car waiting for their mom to pick them up. They're thinking, boy, I'm glad I'm warm in here and it's minus 40 outside, right? Like, that's their thought process.
Yeah.
Because they're not experiencing that same externality.
Yeah. That's totally a thing too. Like, and I should have done this, and I meant to, and I didn't mean to, but I thought about doing this, was just highlighting the fact that the day that I made that video, it was 12.9 degrees in Vancouver.
Oh,
in
yeah.
December. Right?
Yeah. I think there are lots of situations where it's like, just shut it off. Like,
yeah, and there's situations that you should leave it on too.
Yeah.
But
Anyway. Yeah, and Austin says in the chat exactly that. I'm less angry about people idling in minus 40, and it's like, yeah. And he also says it's only minus 40 for like a couple days of the year in Calgary, and I use that as an extreme example, but yeah, when you're idling and it's 12 degrees outside, but again, you're not thinking about it. It's not affecting you. And you have the money to fill up your gas tank.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so, yeah, that's just the way that I think about it is people, they work with what's in front of them. And they
I mean,
feel
that's
like
why
they
the
have
bike
bigger
lanes
fish
are
to
being
fry.
removed in Toronto, is because that's what Doug Ford sees every day when he drives to work.
Right, exactly. Like that's his personal pet issue that he has, right? I feel like for a lot of people who idle, if you were to knock on their door and say like, "Hey, I'm out for a walk here right now and I just like huffed in a whole ton of your exhaust," you know, and they'd probably say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just scrolling Instagram."
Yeah.
Right? Like most people are pleasant and when approached with like, "Hey, this is how this is affecting me," they're like, "Okay, yeah, I'm sorry."
Yeah, as long as you're reasonable, it can go that way. It can go the other way too. We're just pointing out people's bad behavior sometimes sets people off.
I mean,
there was a great reel by Mobility for Who on Instagram today. Just like a super cut all of the times they just politely ask people not to park in the bike lane who are actively in the bike lane.
Yeah.
And some of the reactions, you're like, guys, just like chill and fucking move your car.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it can go both ways. I apologized to somebody once while I was walking in Nashville, Tennessee, and he yelled at me. So
You piece of shit.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
wrong
He's
with you?
like, I was walking along, and I moved out of his way, and I said, "Oh, sorry," and then he turns around and he throws his arms up and he says, "For what?" And then he like said something else and then continued walking. I was like, "Sorry," like.
Don't say it again. Don't do it.
Yeah, I was like, I was in your way. I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe I'm too polite. But final word on that, or you want to move on to this listener mail?
No, that was good. And yeah, good back and forth. I appreciate the feedback, and it's important to remember that. You need to focus on the things that are actually motivational for people to change their behavior, not the negative things that they cause, because people don't like having their shit pointed out.
Well, and also, like, what are you going to do? You're going to spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars sending cops around to ticket people. I feel like we have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, totally. Oh,
Right?
totally. Yeah,
So.
it's not the number one issue.
And I like carrots more than sticks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like sticks occasionally though. They're fun.
Yeah.
We got a message here from Dotist Lori. I don't know.
So, okay, here, I was looking at this name. I was thinking about it. And I was thinking it could be Dottie St. Laurie, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or, so that's like kind of a bit more of a French route, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be Dot East Laurie, right?
Yeah.
It could be more of a German thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could be an acronym and be like danger of the island slang, torrential, loud, and useful regional increase exercise. That could be it too.
Okay. Anyway, this message from Dottis Laurie. And they say the biggest problem with the Green Line in Calgary is most Calgarians are openly against riding the train. They believe it's dangerous and only poor people ride it. I ride it all the time for numerous reasons, like it's cheaper than driving, it's more convenient than driving, I can read on the train, and I always get exercise in. If a Calgarian finds out I've taken the train, I always play up the fact that I love to walk and my physical fitness is one of my top priorities, which is true. But I find people find it hard to argue with physical fitness being a priority. And maybe this is one of those carrots, Alex.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And Austin says in the comments, really? My sense is that the C train isn't culturally considered to be for poor people only. And this is a very interesting thing. And I had a bit of a conversation about this with a friend. We were talking about transit needing a bit of a rebrand and a refresh to encourage people to take it, to make it interesting to take it. And she mentioned to me that during Stampede, it is very normal to take the C train. Everybody takes the C train during Stampede because that's how you get to Stampede. People who drive to Stampede, people are like, well, how do you drive to Stampede, right? Like the parking lots down there are used for Stampede, right? And so it's kind of this interesting thing where we have this 10-day period where everybody takes the C train, no matter what your opinion of it is. If you want to go to Stampede, that's pretty much the choice way to get there. However, the rest of the year, it's like, well, if you're a downtown office worker, you're probably taking the C train. And so, yeah, my take on this, I think the exercise and the zone out, that Dottie, we're going to call you Dottie, that more maybe Lori is talking about here, is nice. Like, it's nice. The zone out of transit is so nice to just sit there and just have headphones on, listen to music, read a book. It's a genuinely pleasant unwind after work. I know after hanging out with friends and I sit on the bus and it's late at night, I'm just rolling along. I enjoy that kind of decompression time on transit. But as far as the train goes being for poor people, I feel like the train is seen as more for everybody and the bus is often seen as like sketchy, which is interesting because the bus is significantly less sketchy than the train because you have another person immediately accessible. The operator is right there. And you also have to have a ticket, like you scan on your ticket. Whereas on the C train, it only happens if somebody happens to come through your car and check tickets. Right. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing talking about, the way people feel about transit, the way we communicate about transit, whether it's being for poors or otherwise. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's a whole thing. I'm curious in Vancouver, how do people feel about like the SkyTrain versus the buses? Like, is there a different sentiment or is it just all kind of transit?
I think that's everywhere. Is that the bus is seen as something lesser than a train. I don't know. Like, I think I talked about this recently on the show, is that people see a train as something that's more trustworthy or that it's better in some way. And it's a more, I don't want to say valuable, but attractive public transportation method. I don't know why. Like, I don't know why it's the case, but like, even in my own mind, that kind of springs up, even though that I know the power of buses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think part of the reason is that a train, unless you're in Toronto, of course, you have like this very clear right of way, right? Where like if I'm on the C train, like I'm cruising, the time is so predictable, right? I have the right of way. Whereas on the bus, like you can end up stuck in traffic. You might be behind somebody who's like in the turning lane, and then you don't get a chance to go through that light. And so there's kind of that aspect. There's also a permanence to the train, right? Like if I don't take the train for a decade, I know the red line. There's still Southland Station over there. Like it's this big visible landmark, right? And I know that if I get on Southland Station and I head north, like I'm going to get to downtown, and I know the stops that are on that route, right? Because it's the same every single time. Whereas our buses and our bus routes and the schedule get revised every 3 months. And most of them don't change every 3 months. Like most of them stay pretty consistent. But there will be times where like you'll go outside. If you don't take a bus for a decade, you could end up going outside to catch your bus. And it's like, oh, they call it a different number now. And it's on a different route and it goes to a different place, right? So I think there's that aspect as well, because there's a permanence to the tracks that a train uses. So that could be one aspect. Also, trains are fun. Like they're big, giant vehicles on the set route. And I think people love that. Yeah, I don't know, but then with the Green Line, people have a whole lot of perspectives and things on that. That's a whole thing that we could spend forever talking about. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to talk about the fact that physical fitness is a great thing that you can get out of having a more urbanist place. We already know this from people who live in Manhattan, for example. They walk a lot more than their suburban counterparts because that's just how you get around. It's like that in many traditional cities. It's something that I thankfully get to do every day, is walk places for the things that I need every day. And that's fantastic. And it's something I mentioned before in one of my videos a while ago. I don't remember which one, but I had mentioned that when I went back to Ontario, this was probably a year or 2 years ago, the thought came over me just to see how much weight all of my friends have gotten. You know, they had moved to satellite towns outside of the bigger metro area, and they end up driving everywhere, right? And I was just blown away by it. They gotten really big. I was like, you guys, I didn't say this to their faces, but like, you guys have gotten really unhealthy. And I think one part of that is the fact that they're not moving anymore, right? They're busy, their lives are busy and stuff too. But when you spend so much time in your car for commuting purposes because you're farther away, because your urban area's gotten so expensive because housing's just crazy right now, and you spend all that time in the car, you don't have time to work out, let alone being, I don't want to say forced, but forced to by your environment, or at least encouraged to by your environment, to at least get the bare minimum of physical exercise. And it's a great thing that we can get even from using transit.
Yeah, because you have to do that little bit of extra walking before and after your trip. And I'll say too, as working from home has become more of a thing. I work full time from home now, and it sucks, honestly. Like it really, really sucks, and that's a big reason why I like getting out in my community and participating more, because just like sitting at home all day staring at a computer screen is brutal, and you feel it. Like you feel the difference. Sometimes I'll go work from a public library just so that I can be out somewhere. And also it's so easy to just like go to the kitchen and grab a snack like every 30 minutes. Just be like, I need a brain break. And then you go and eat something. Austin in the chat says, can confirm, working from home sucks for physical activity. I mean, I like it as it's hard to motivate myself to leave the house, but I'm so unfit now. Yeah, like it. I think creating ways that get us out and moving, and building a city that does some of that exercising for us, right? That just kind of builds that in, even if it is as small as like, I have a library within walking distance, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to work from there for a little bit, doing those sorts of things, or even literally just like I'm going to go have drinks with friends, and I'm going to take transit there, or I'm going to walk or bike or something else, something that just gets you moving and out a little bit more. And I also think this is why it's important to have parks in our communities, right? Like give people these spaces that we can go to. And enjoy and encourage us to be out in the community. Sean in the live chat here says, yeah, I work from home too, but do similar things. Bike down to the library or a cafe to work for a bit. Get out and moving. Yeah.
The gym of life.
The gym of life. Yeah, I like that. Closing thoughts, Nick?
Just, if you can, just try it. If you're somebody who doesn't normally walk places or use active transportation, try it for a little bit. See how it feels. You might realize that it's a lot more fun than you think it might otherwise be. Yeah. Better for your mental health too. Yeah. Just gets the brain going. You start thinking. It's nice.
Yeah, and then keep doing it. But if, honestly, if you hate it, well, different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah.
This comment comes from Jen. Jen left this in the live chat a little bit earlier on, just as some listener mail, a question that we could ask or answer. And she says, did you get something urbanist related for Christmas? This is a good question. Nick, did you?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I got one gift for Christmas for my wife. It was a t-shirt of a collage of our cats with like really metal, like text of their names on the top with like lightning bolts and stuff. It's ridiculous. That's all I got. How about you?
That's super cute. I did not. I'm not in like a super gifty family. Either. We're broadly not too over the top about anything. So yeah, for Christmas we did a little gift exchange, and I got these little figurines, these Lego figurines you can see on my back shelf there.
Yeah.
And I bought this little jellyfish from my sister. She made this, so I decided to support her little business and get this super cute little jellyfish out of it. I got to pick the colors and everything. So, that's kind of literally nothing to do with urbanism on either of these things. Austin does say that his parents gave him money that he intends to use for shoes, which is an urbanist thing. Feet first.
Nice.
Yeah, he said, oh, and he actually says, Vessi shoes aren't great to walk in and give me blisters.
Agreed.
If I have a faster pace. I've never used Vessis. Have you
I
have though?
I bike in them to work like almost every day, especially when it's raining, and they're great
Yeah.
for that. But walking, no.
Really?
There's like no, yeah, same. I get blisters, especially in the back of like my heels, and also they're just. It's great that they're waterproof, but they're not breathable. So you end up if you wear them for a long time, you end up with just wet feet because they sweat.
Yeah.
Hot. So
Yeah.
they're good for short trips.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime I see shoes advertise themselves as breathable and waterproof, I'm like, one of those is a lie.
Yeah.
Like, and potentially both. Potentially both. I'm not, I don't know. I've never used Vessis. I always just go to Sport Check and find whatever's on sale.
Yeah. Oh man, getting a
Yeah.
good pair of shoes, man, life changing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I said this to you before. This is super mundane late show stuff, but I bought a pair of shoes that have like a wider toe box,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and I put them on, and I was like, "Is this what shoes are supposed to feel like?"
yeah.
And I literally bought 4 pairs immediately, and like,
Yeah.
I have new pairs in my closet
Yeah.
because I'm like, I'm never going back. These are amazing. They're so comfortable.
That's what I did with pants. My pants, I have one pair of pants, but I have like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And it's all they're the exact same pants, just different colors, but I'm like, yep, these fit, they're comfortable. That's what I wear now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Sean says wide foot club. LOL.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. When you find something that works. I've always felt pretty comfortable in pretty typical shoes. I feel like I'm very average, like incredibly average. So I guess that has its benefits. Austin says, I also have wide feet. Does help when subway surfing hands free. Yeah, a stable base. I like that. Well, do we have anything else to talk about? Anything else we want to say?
I just want to say, be good people. Be good to yourselves. Be good to your family. Be good to your community. That's it.
Yeah. And remember, the internet is not a real place. So your community is a real place. So go outside, touch grass, go for a walk, meet your neighbors, and participate in the real world, because that's where you live, believe it or not. Yeah, Ethan's not here to do our little, well, folks. Should I do an Ethan impression of how
Yes, please.
he wraps up the show? Well, folks, and he'd clap, which I'm not going to do because that messes with the audio so much. Well, folks, thank you very much. The finger guns. Ethan does finger guns sometimes. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are so delighted that you chose to spend this time with us. And Nick, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Nick the Door. How about you, Alex? Where can the good people and the bad people find you?
Yeah, all sorts of people. Any sort of person who happens to have access to the internet and access to the websites where I feature can find me at Humane Cities on YouTube and Instagram, and at Alex Williams on pretty much, or at Alex Williams YYC. I'm sorry. Guys, I was not born early enough and in tech enough. If I was born in the 70s and was like the first tech bro, then maybe I would have the username at Alex Williams. But alas, that is not I. Alex Williams YYC, it shall be. So you can find me in all of those places at those handles. Take us away, Nick.
I gotta say, 4 wheels bad, 2 wheels good.
4 wheels bad. Do you feel that way? 4 wheels bad? What if it's like roller skates?
That's 8 wheels.
Yeah, that's 8 wheels. Yeah, good point. Fair enough. 8 wheels good. And I'll say feet first.